Good evening, you fantastic and glorious degenerates of this floating rock that we call Earth. Welcome to the Cajun Libertarian Show. I am your host, Noel Olin. Yes, we are changing things up a little bit tonight and forevermore. Tonight, we have the amazing Clint Russel from Liberty Lockdown, one of the fastest, largest growing podcasts and great voices in the libertarian movement. Very well informed, very intelligent, very educated, and well spoken. Cannot wait to have him on here in just a few minutes on the Cajun Libertarian Show, and we are live. Yes, and yes. Welcome back to the Cajun Libertarian Show. I'm your host, Noel Olin, and we have another new sponsor for the show, DeSoto.com, DYSDO.com. I am wearing one of their merch shirts that they sent me right here, right now. Dangerous liberty over peaceful slavery. I'll move the mic. Dangerous liberty over peaceful slavery. Please go check them out. DeSoto is a libertarian-owned shirt company with designs intended to start a conversation. Use code CAJUN15, C-A-J, I was going to say G, C-A-J-U-N-1-5, CAJUN15 for 15% off your order at DeSoto.com. That's DSYDO.com, DeSoto.com. I'd also like to give a big huge shout out to Gang. That's hashtag Gang online. I was informed that most of y'all are listening tonight and was asked to give a shout out, and I am absolutely delighted to do so. So shout out to Gang. And with that being said, let's bring on the man of the hour, Mr. Clint Russell himself. Clint, how are you?
I'm good, man.
What's going on, baby? Doing good. Excellent.
Just reveling in the fact that Jimmy Dore read one of my tweets on his show yesterday, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw that. That's freaking awesome, dude. It's a big deal.
Yeah, he's got a huge show, and I've been wanting to get Jimmy on my show forever. So hopefully this is the entree to make that happen. Who knew that a stupid Brian Stelter being a sentient potato joke would be the the olive branch to get his attention? So you never know. Maybe it'll happen.
Oh, well, I think it will happen. That's that was a great tweet, by the way. I know it was just a stupid joke, but it really was funny. I literally saw it just minutes before we got started, maybe 30 minutes max before we got started. And I was like, oh my God, Clint got on the Jimmy Dore show with a great tweet. Oh, yes. And RIP to Brian Stelter, the absolute greatest journalist of journalism, of all the journalism that can be poured of journalisming all over us in a hot, wet fashion. RIP to your career.
I am being sincere when I say he will be missed. I really believe that, it's kind of like having Biden as president. You want your enemies to be as awful as possible,
right.
as transparently bad at their jobs as possible, because man, he couldn't have done a better job. So, let's hope he lands on his feet and gets another kick here soon.
Well, I imagine he'll probably, at the very least, get a nice little book deal out of it. Who knows? But I do find it quite dashingly ironic that instead of just killing the show that was like 30, 40 something years old, I heard this on the radio multiple times. I'm like, it was a program that was very old, very well credited, been around a long time. He single-handedly murdered that show. And instead of saying, okay, we'll kill the show, but we'll give you another gig, CNN just said peace.
Oh, dude. I think they're going to do it to their entire lineup, to be honest. And it's needed to happen for a long time. So I'm not at all surprised. The ratings are absolutely horrific. It's funny because, their propaganda is in part the reason that Donald Trump's not president right now. And if Donald Trump was president right now, their ratings would still be solid. So they actually,
That's right.
They did too good of a job and they lost their jobs because of it.
That's well said. I actually made a meme a long time ago. It was right after Trump left the office, before I ever started podcasting, which is I've barely been doing this a year. But I had made a meme, and I'm sure you're familiar with the template. It's Wolverine with the picture frame in his hands, missing it. And I placed CNN's logo over Wolverine's face and put a picture of Donald Trump on it, because their ratings just tanked after he left. It said that was all they had. Now he's gone, and so is essentially CNN. Other than the obvious, right? Just straight propaganda for the left wing. Look, MSNBC is as well, but at least they're open about the fact that they're progressive leftists. CNN tries to poise themselves and present themselves as a moderate and not, unbiased organization. So why did they continue to do that when the entire world knew they were lying?
Well, I don't think that they were necessarily trying to position themselves that way. I mean, it's the same way that Fox News says they were fair and balanced for the longest time. That's what their moniker was, and it's like none of this is unbiased. None of this is balanced, and I think that the sooner people realize it, the better. I'm just grateful that they're feeding their audience what they want to hear, and they're progressively, pun intended, dividing us more and more rapidly ideologically, to the point that peaceful secession and things of that nature start to become popularized, because there's no like the average Fox News viewer and the average MSNBC or CNN viewer, their worldviews are so diametrically opposed that I think at some point we have to realize there's no putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, and if we can do it in a peaceful fashion, it's to the benefit of everybody involved. So that's my hope. I know it's far-fetched to believe that that's even a possibility at this point, but I really think that things are going to get so ugly that people will look back on these conversations in 2022 where we're saying, hey, we should probably have a peaceful divorce here, and they'll say, man, those guys were onto something.
I think you're absolutely correct, because quite honestly, I'm not sure that I see any path forward. I don't know how we can share a government, quite literally, with these new progressives and the far right or alt right. Far right and alt right are different. I know you know that, but a lot of people don't understand that. I had to have that conversation with my father this week. He was like, "Those people aren't right wingers." I'm like, "Yes, they are, Dad. They're alt right. They're alternative right. Okay, and they're just as bad as the progressive left. But we're not going to be able to share a government with these people. So if there's going to be any hope for peace moving forward, I don't see how it's in any other manner than a peaceful divorce. So I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, well, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, what JFK Jr.'s most recent interview, I forget the guy's name, Jeffrey Sachs, I believe. Yep. It's absolutely jaw-dropping. It's all about the origins of COVID. I won't say any of it on your show because I don't want to get you in trouble, but I highly recommend that people go listen to it. It's on Spotify. It's incredible. My personal opinion after listening to it, I mean, I've already had most of this information because my show is Liberty Lockdown. I've been, researching and studying this stuff for over 2 years now. But to have some extra dots that are connected in that, I'm 99% convinced that our intelligence agencies have infiltrated, obviously our media, but what people aren't aware of is that they have also infiltrated our, medical health establishment to a stunning degree. And I think that's the reason that we had such a hellacious experience over the past 2.5 years. So, until people are willing to come to terms with that and realize, hey, you can't remedy this. The people that are supposed to stop crime are in fact at the highest levels orchestrating it. Well, how do you reform that? You really don't.
Yeah, I don't see there's any, I don't know or see that there's any way to remedy any of it outside of abolishing it, to be quite honest. And this is something we've called for a long time, right? Abolish the IRS, abolish the CIA, abolish the FBI, abolish the DHS, abolish the Department of Education. These are all sound things to do. And now we have mainstream Republicans like Glenn Beck and Jesse Kelly advocating for it. There's no path forward into private security without the abolishment of these agencies. However, I don't see that there's enough of the major talking heads signing on to it, right? So I can't stand, I'll be honest with you. I can't stand Sean Hannity. Like he makes me nauseous when he just comes across my airwaves. Terrible. And then you got the same thing for what's those two guys' names, the ones that took over Rush. Clint Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Same thing. I just can't do it. Right. And they sound like Mike Pence. And Mike Pence, I'm sure you heard that speech come across the airwaves over the last week, talking about the Republican Party is the party of law and order, and we shouldn't be talking about abolishing the FBI. We just need to root out the corruption. Brother, the entire FBI agency is corrupt. The entire CIA and IRS, they are rooted, founded, and operated in the blood of corruption, period, full stop. So there's no way that you
from their inception. I think
Correct.
that's the key thing to note is like, this isn't some modern iteration of the FBI. This is a deeply corrupt organization from its inception. It has always been utilized to pursue political dissidents as well as political enemies.
That's right.
Maybe it's a relatively modern iteration within the IRS and things like that, where it's being used to pursue those same enemies. But regardless, it all needs to be abolished, or at the very minimum, we need to opt out. Have some sort of separation where the people that want that insanity can keep it, and those that are sane would like to exit stage left. And that's my hope, is that happens, because I really believe it gets very ugly, very violent if it doesn't occur. So, we have someone like Ted Cruz, who's a longtime Republican senator, tweeting out "abolish the IRS" today. I don't believe that he means it. I don't believe that he has any intention of implementing it. But it is nice to see that some very hardcore libertarian beliefs are starting to be spoken, like that from high levels. And that's important. People can poo-poo it and go, oh, Ted Cruz isn't going to do shit. It's like, no, of course he's not going to do shit. But it's still a step in the right direction that we can even get people to start saying these things.
And that's been my argument 100%. Is that even now that it's even being uttered out loud is an absolute step in the right direction. Scientific Libertarian 2.0 says, calm down, guys. They clearly said income tax is going to be temporary, right? So a great motto, joke, or slogan, whatever you want to phrase it as, label it as, is there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government agency. Right?
Yeah, well, as soon as World War I ends, I'm sure the IRS is going to close up shop, so everybody can relax. I mean,
that's great.
it's like that's the whole reason that I started my show, was because I understand that any sort of temporary government apparatus becomes permanent unless there is absolute outrage, pushback, constant, and that's what I hoped to provide, just my very minor way against the lockdown regime, and the medical tyranny, fascism, whatever you want to call it, that we've experienced over the past 2.5 years. And it seems as if they have realized, whatever their intentions were with that apparatus, they had to take a step back for a time. And I don't think that happens if it's not for, people like us that are out here saying, hey, this is not something we're willing to deal with for the rest of our lives, and you gotta stop here. And obviously they're realigning. They're going to use these in different methodologies, be it central bank digital currencies and social credit scores and all sorts of other stuff that we're going to have to be extraordinarily vigilant for. But I always try and just remind people, like, as defeated as we feel and as awful as these past couple of years have been, we are still winning to some extent. It could be much, much worse right now had we all just bit our tongues and taken the jab and shut up. I just hope people are encouraged that it does make a difference. Peaceful protest and throwing off the shackles, it makes a difference.
Amen. Absolutely, 100% agree. And while we peacefully revolt, because that word, that operative word there is peacefully, y'all, we also must be obviously cognitively aware of what's going on around us, and we are not reliant on state actors for ours or our children's safety. And I want to come back to the social credit score thing that you were just talking about, because we want to get a little bit into the ESG stuff. But real quick, talking about personal safety, Gap Armory. Gap Armory carries a wide variety of parts and accessories. Whether you're looking for build kits for 3D printed firearms, optics, outstanding level 4 body armor, or anything in between, they have you covered. Gap Armory is libertarian owned and operated. They also accept Bitcoin. Gap Armory has the gear you need to bridge the gap in your defense preparedness. Get what you need today at gaparmory.com. That's gaparmory.com, GAPARMORY.com, gaparmory.com. Check them out. I've had him on the show several times. He's been sponsoring the show for a long time. Great dude, great company. Check them out for your 3D printed firearms and more today. So, carrying along that same line of what we're just talking about, obviously self-defense is paramount. We saw what happened in Uvalde. Do not trust these state actors to take care of your kids and keep you safe. Get yourself prepared, not just with firearms, ammunition, but also with food and water. And now we're having to deal with this. And like I told you before the program, I listened to you and Matt Kibbe's show. Shout out to Matt Kibbe, and another shout out to the gang, #gang. Matt Kibbe's been on the show a couple of times. You were on his show talking about ESG and basically what Glenn Beck, who in my opinion has the greatest investigative journalistic team in the world right now, they've been covering ESG. And I'm one of those kids that I told you I fell into it after it was cool, right? But apparently you have been following, understanding. You're a finance guy, an extremely intelligent finance guy. You've known about these ESGs and social credit scores, this great reset. And for those of you that don't know, ESG is environmental, social justice, and governance scores, right? So how you operate your business on. I've talked to a great friend of mine who's an oil and gas executive and said, it doesn't even matter how much clean energy you're proposing or how many elements of clean energy you plan to implement. They were given better ESG scores if they had, like, let's say, trans persons in higher elements of their hierarchy, or
that's the S. That's the aspect of it.
So give us your thoughts on that, because you're well versed in it. You're much more educated in ESG and social credit score. But in regards to how it's happening now, and what I heard from you on Matt Kibbe's show is it's been happening for 18 years. Which is beyond my understanding. So, as best as you can with that broad A question that I just presented to you, give us your thoughts on that, please.
Well, when I say 18 years, that's when its inception was 18 years ago in terms of like philosophically, ideologically, in terms of implementation. The rollout took years for them to get all the biggest businesses on board, and it didn't really pick up steam until probably 2018 or 2020 even. It really caught fire at that point.
Right.
But you have the biggest money managers on earth that are all on board. They're all managing tens of trillions of dollars. By some estimates, it's over 50 trillion that is being doled out in some form of ESG guidance. And when you have that amount of money that's being pushed under this ideological framework, you end up with malinvestment that's extraordinarily dangerous. This is very similar to keeping interest rates hyper low for too extended of a period of time. You just create malinvestment across the board that eventually the piper gets paid. And I think that's what we're seeing in places like Sri Lanka, obviously Europe, Germany, the exploding costs of utilities, because it's not like everyone wants to blame it on Russia or the sanctions on Russia or the war in Ukraine or whatever. This is a much more deep-seated problem. They have been aggressively moving off of nuclear power as well as fossil fuels because they have this stupid Agenda 2030, and they're true believers, man. When these people go to the World Economic Forum in Davos and they sit around and they talk about this stuff, they're sincere, and they are of the belief that if we do not migrate and get to net zero carbon emissions by 2030, or maybe a couple of years later, that the world essentially ends. And they're behaving in that fashion. They believe that sacrificing the individual to preserve the collective is ultimately the moral right thing to do, and it's a moral good. And when you have that framework, that mental lattice work, you're capable of extraordinary evil. And right. I think that's what we're witnessing, is that, the inflation, the shortages of, the things that make life survive, oil, gas, food, all those things, they are willing to sacrifice in the interim, and the people are going to have to decide: are we going to allow these lunatics to run us into the rocks, or are we going to let them know it's not going to get played out how you expect?
Yeah, and so something that's been refreshing to see is major players like, and I always mess this guy's name up. I got some sort of mental block on it for some reason, but Vevek
Ramaswamy.
Yeah. Okay, he's somebody that's fighting back in a real way. He, from my understanding, my very shallow and ignorant understanding of it, is basically he's trying to present to us in a economic fashion an apparatus that, okay, great, yeah, alternative, very good,
yeah,
an alternative, in a capitalistic manner.
It's a Strive asset management. It's actually, I think it's actually rolling out in September, so just a few weeks from now, and it's an ETF that goes back to the basics of, hey, we're going to chase real returns and real production.
Right.
What a novel concept, right? But it's throwing off the shackles of ESG ideology and the framework therein. And I'm rooting for them. I think what people don't understand is the relationship to the central banks of the world, and the Federal Reserve most particularly, gives a competitive advantage to the money managers that already exist, that are already playing this game. State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, they all have relationships with the Federal Reserve. I am not at all certain that they will give that same Fed window access to someone like Vevek. And if he doesn't have that access, it's not a level playing field. He's going to have to outcompete what I consider to be fascistic business models. And that's not easy to do.
100%.
I mean, think about trying to compete against some CCP owned megacorp in China as a startup. Like, you don't win that fight. And I think, unfortunately, the American economic model is far more similar to the CCP model than even the most black-pilled people want to admit. So it's going to be a true test, and it's going to require the consumer to decide. I'm going to remove my money from the management structure of ESG guidance and migrate it over towards this upstart. And obviously, he's getting a ton of money thrown his way right now. Yeah, I think he's going to have some level of success, but it's to be determined.
Yeah, TBD for sure. But I do think that they're at a minimum, just the current trajectory of the success that it's obviously looking like that he's going to have. What that's measured in is yet to be seen, like you said, TBD. But putting a dent in it is a massive situation.
Oh, it's meaningful. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And even I would probably project that even more than just the dent economically that he can put in it. People like yourself and Glenn Beck, everybody spreading awareness about the Great Reset, about ESG, about Davos. I think that's going to have a much more massive impact on the people's hearts and minds, and then people actually taking their money out of these systems that invest in the Vanguards, the BlackRocks, the State Streets, and moving them into his organization, or just not even moving them into anything, might actually present a better alternative and a much more successful avenue in it, not necessarily just overtaking the entire social credit score model, because at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's social credit. Right, it's not just ESG. That's just
it's corporate social credit, and this is, I've made this point many times, but it's important to make it again that, while the Alex Jones of the world and all the conspiracy theorists of the world were pontificating on social credit scores, in the back door came corporate credit scores, which had outsized power, and I don't think anybody really understood it until very recently. I only really understood it deeply about a year and a half ago. And I'm extraordinarily grateful that there's so many big voices out there that are sounding the alarm alongside me, because I certainly can't do it on my own. But right. Alex is right about one thing. We are in an information war. Like, that is 100% where we're at. And this is why the censorship apparatus, has grown so strong, and why they're booting everybody from everything, because we are a hydra. We're an infinite hydra. We have so many heads to this thing, and they just keep chopping us off, but there's always one to take its place. And ultimately I believe truth wins out. So I just think that the more courage, more people are putting their thumbs on that lever to say, hey, this is a problem, and this is going to create a catastrophe if we don't stop it. Hopefully enough people catch on. I think it's also a multi-front battle, in that you have now some Republican politicians which are speaking out against it, DeSantis most notably, but there's other local state representatives that are rolling out laws that say, essentially, if you are trying to implement ESG within our state, you can't do business here. And I think it's, as much as I hate to go the status route, I think that given how perilous this is, it's important that, people look at those options, because, people will say, oh, well, that's a status solution. I'm like, hey, it's a status problem. So if you have a federal level status problem, and it's like life ending potentially,
that's right.
To look at this state level governance as a potential band-aid to that issue in the interim, I think is a perfectly libertarian vantage point to hold. And, some people will disagree with me, no doubt, but I don't think I'm wrong.
Well, no, I mean, you nailed it, right? I mean, that's what one of the biggest issues that I face in the libertarian movement, and speaking with these people in a broad scale all the time, is that we want this libertarian utopia tomorrow. But the problem is that we're not going to get that tomorrow. We have to operate within the common sense and confines of the current system that we have right now. And when you have something that is, like you said, as perilous, excuse me, as ESG barreling down our throats, which could be a country killer. And that is not hyperbolic, y'all. I'm not speaking hyperbolically. Literally, Sri Lanka 5 years ago was a rich country. They adopted all of these ESG Great Reset measures, and they just had a real insurrection, and the entire country is in shambles. So this isn't fear porn. This is what's happening, and we need the greatest measures to take against it. Otherwise, that could eat. That's one of the biggest. That I can't stand that. That could never happen to us. Yes, the F it can, and it might. So wake up and figure out what's going on. So
same thing with Europe, man. I mean, people think that I'm fear mongering about what's happening in Europe. I am, if anything, I am underselling it. And if you look at the Chinese economy, it's in incredible danger too. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it comes with obviously pluses and minuses of a globalized economy, that one of these dominoes tips over due to derivatives markets and things of that nature. I could go into, how this all is connected, but obviously there's trade markets that impact it, but then there's also the derivatives contracts, which blow up the entire banking system if one of these countries goes under, one of these major countries goes under. I don't think I'm overstating it to say, like, this is very urgent. So, we'll see if I'm right. If the Chinese economy eats shit over the next 12 months, you can look back on this and go, okay, Clint knows what he's talking about. If you see the utilities costs, freezing people to death in Europe this winter, then you can again look back on this and go, okay, Clint was right. And I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But based off of what I'm reading and what I'm researching, it looks very bleak.
Yeah, it looks very terrible. I mean, here's one of the other bigger issues that we have. One thing that COVID did do, right? The COVID tyranny, it helped us to grab a lot of people in the red pill matrix sense. I for whatever reason, I have to explain that garbage all the time. Like, red pill is not Republican, okay? Red pill is waking up, blue pill is staying asleep. It's a matrix reference. Go look it up. Anyway, something that the COVID tyranny did for us was wake a lot of this stuff up. it got people to pay attention to what's going on. So I really hope that people are paying attention to what you're saying right now, because I have been. I'm following it, and at the current trajectory, we're looking at 100 million dead to starvation and non-weather acclimation substances, right? Like substances, like you said, over in Europe, people freezing to death because they don't have heat or AC because the government's shutting that crap down. So please do some research, pay attention. This is not a joke. We're talking about a lot of many people potentially dying if they don't wake up from this. So
well, they're going to wake up whether they want to or not. I mean, if you can't eat, you're going to wake up. So it's just up to you if you want to, face the truth now and try and remedy this while you still can, or suffer through the consequences. My whole mantra has been, I'm going to speak out while I still can, and I'm going to call attention to this stuff while we still have an opportunity to make a difference. And, if people, want to just bury their head in the sand and pray that it all works out, it isn't going to work out. Like we need people that are actually proactively tackling these really complex matters. And my belief is that the libertarians are the best people to do it, because we're one of the few people that understand central banking and economics in a way that's, in my view, true, as opposed to the unbelievable liars that run the central banks of the world. So this is our moment. This is our job. So we got to do it.
And we can't pass this up. But we missed. Man. And when I say missed, that is an understatement of the century when we missed on COVID lockdowns.
No shit.
We didn't even take a swing. We didn't even come out of the dugout. We just let the pitcher softball strikes, and we sat there and lost. So let's learn from that mistake. Let's move forward.
There's a reason this thing exists.
Love it.
Like that's the whole reason, man. Because I don't think that I honestly, if the Libertarian Party was on the front lines like they should have been against the lockdown regime, I would have never got involved. I would have been like, my people got this. We're good to go. But that's not what happened. They bit their tongue. They, many libertarians came out and advocated for, a wait and see approach. Like, well, what if this is really hyper lethal? Well, then we should, be masking and doing all this stuff and mandating it if we have to. I mean, just unbelievably unlibertarian views, just cowardly views to hold. And I'll never forgive those people. And I'm grateful that many of them have left the Libertarian Party, because if you value security over freedom, you aren't one of us. To my bones, I believe that. And a lot of people that called themselves libertarians got proven to not be proven. And those people should not represent us. They should not be the vanguard of our movement. They should not be the ones that are propagating our messaging. And I just thank God that they're all going away. Finally.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank God they're being weeded out. And I have a lot of Mises friends and a lot of Mises people. I have Angela McCardle coming on again for a third or fourth time. Come on soon.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she's freaking great. A brilliant person, aggressive, just absolutely great. Love Angela. Can't wait to have her back on again. I'm actually not a Mises member, right? And there's things that about the Mises Caucus that I'm like, man, y'all didn't do that right. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't the best way to go about it. But with the takeover that Mises has done, we've seen an entirely different Libertarian Party when it comes to bold messaging, and I absolutely applaud it. I was even fighting with somebody on Twitter because they're mad that the LP Twitter account was dunking on people. Like, what do you think Twitter's for? That's what it's for. That's what we do. Calm down, take some Prozac or some Xanax or something, go smoke a joint, go have some fun. No, you're only mad because we decided to adopt as an entire party. You know what? We're not going to accept this idea of being silent and playing cordial and, but my decorum. No, I don't care about your decorum. I don't care about your demeanor. I don't care about your professionalism. I want you dunking on these clowns. I want you making bold statements. And that's what we're doing now. And that's what we missed poorly, badly, and in my opinion, decisive. They were intentional on missing it during the COVID era. We had a chance. we had a shot where we could just smash the Republicans and the Democrats and say no. And we didn't do it. Instead, we cowered and tucked our tail between our legs.
Yeah, it's pathetic. I mean, look at the trajectory of my show from starting in May 2020, making my entire purpose, my entire focus on the COVID lockdown regime. And I went from like 2,000 followers to 50,000 followers. I've now had over 1 million downloads of my show. Imagine if the LP was that, you know, like imagine if the entire LP was that. These are rare moments where telling unpopular truths when they're unpopular.
Amen.
That's the key. You can change your entire trajectory of your movement. And I'm so disappointed that they didn't capitalize on it. But the good news is that we are still experiencing awful tyranny. So we still have that opportunity to change things in a very dramatic fashion, and not a moment too soon. I mean, the next 3 years are going to tell the tale of what happens in this country, and arguably on this planet. So maybe not even 3 years. It may be the next 3 months. I mean, the fact that we are on the precipice of, you know, World War III with Russia, and no one even mentions it hardly except for the Libertarian Party. I'm just so grateful to be a part of this, and I'm so grateful that this organization has woken the fuck up, because we don't have any time to waste. I mean, we didn't have time to waste 10 years ago. We didn't have time to waste, but now we absolutely have not a minute to waste. And these are the people that need to be involved, and thank God they're doing it.
Yeah, amen. Could not be any more 100% cosign, 1,000% correct. Glad we're doing it. And you can hate me for, not you, obviously. You can hate me all you want for saying it. I don't care. But I'm sick of you whining about the LP removing things from the platform, or, you know, still freaking gatekeeping the LP because you want it to look like the way you want it to look like. I'm done with it. Go take that garbage somewhere else. We are on a mission now. We have literally a country to save. Stop. Tuck your vagina back in, remove the panties from it, and get on with it. Because if you don't, we can lose quickly. And we have been losing quickly. And
yes, so, we have been.
It's just remarkable to me that these people are still doing this. And I shouldn't be even astonished by it, right, Clint? I mean, I really shouldn't. But at the same time, it's like, maybe you should take 5 seconds to look around the country and realize what the hell is going on. Shut your mouth and let's get some work done.
I think that, you know, it was a true litmus test on people's priorities more than anything over the past 2 years. Like, if your focus has been on race relations in America as opposed to the COVID regime, you failed. Your focus, your principles, you don't have a fucking clue what's going on. You don't have a fucking clue what's going on. So that's why I am so grateful that we are now able to control the messaging apparatus of the LP, because it's like, we need to focus on what matters. Like, I'm not saying that racism isn't an issue. Don't be fucking stupid. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying it isn't the key issue that we need to spend 90% of our time talking about.
Not at all.
Like, not even close. So
not even.
Lock in. You know, lock in on what matters. Lock in on what's actually affecting people's lives. I mean, the COVID regime, the inflation that we're experiencing now, the social unrest, the drug addiction, the deaths from people just sitting in their house from not getting the care that they needed, suicides, the violence, the theft, all of this was foreseeable. All of it. I put out a thread. Unfortunately, because I have to, worry about bans, I have all of my tweets delete automatically after 7 days. But if you could go back in time and see my thread in fucking May of 2020, I put out a 25 tweet thread where I laid out the entire next 2 years. And I said, all of these things are going to happen. All of these things. And guess what? Every single one of them is happening right now. And it's not because I'm some fucking psychic or some genius. It's that I understand economics and I understand human nature. And the people that do understand those things, they have to be the ones that are messaging. Those have to be the leaders of our movement, because you have to be willing to look 2 steps ahead. If you can't do that, you're useless to us, because this is a very rapidly evolving problem. And if you're just going to be caught up in like, well, what about this thing today? It's like, it's not about this thing today. It's about the policies today and the ramifications that are inevitable going to come from those decisions. So, not a moment to spare.
Okay. Not a moment to spare. And like you said, and me and my father were talking about this just 2 or 3 days ago. It's not about being a psychic. It's not about being a prophet. It's about understanding basic pathological patterns and understanding those the more prominent results that come from said patterns. And it does. You don't have to have a degree to understand this. All you have to do is just pay attention. Just pay attention.
Yeah.
And we can see what falls in line down the road after.
And don't buy the lies. Don't buy the lies that you can shut down the economy and print trillions of dollars and you're not going to have terrible economic consequences from it. It's nonsense. Anybody with fucking an ounce of common sense knew it was nonsense. But apparently, even libertarians are capable of being cowed in moments of severe crisis. And I'm not saying that COVID wasn't a crisis. It was. But the crisis that is starting to arise because of the decisions that our governmental leaders made during that period pales in comparison. I mean, if you have a global depression, if you have a global starvation, or like, come on, nothing's going to come close to what COVID represented. And they made that trade-off. They made it with fear mongering on the front end and printing on the back end, and we're all paying the consequences for it. And the libertarians are the only ones that really understand this stuff. And this is why this is why I rock with the LP. This is why I am a libertarian, because even though I obviously align more with the GOP when it comes to their rhetoric than I do with the Democrat Party right now, the only people that really get this are the libertarians. Like, they are very special people. I wish it weren't the case. I wish we were the fucking average common person, but we're not. We're very unique. Very. Thank God. Thank God that I found my tribe.
Amen. Same. I'm right there with you. Same thing. Absolutely, 100%. It was kind of relatively easy for me. I'll spare the backstory, but it was very easy to me. Very easy for me. Real quick, I want to get to our last sponsor, Joe Soloski, JoeSoloski. Joe Soloski for Pennsylvania governor. He is running with the Keystone Party, actually. So if you're looking for another person and you're in Pennsylvania, you definitely don't want Republicans. You definitely don't want Democrats. Libertarians are obviously the big option, but maybe you didn't like who they elected in their convention, right? So you want to check it out. So check out Joe Soloski. Maybe he's your man. I actually will have Joe on in a couple of weeks, and you can hear from him and what the Keystone Party is all about. As libertarian-minded people, I firmly believe in the process of electing the best person for the job and not straight line party or straight ticket voting. I am fully against that, although I support 99.9999999% of libertarians. I do love Joe. He's a great man, so go check him out, joesoloski.com. joesoloski.com. And maybe you decide to go with a libertarian candidate. That would make my heart happy as well. Just don't vote Republican or Democrat. Please, for the love of God, in Pennsylvania, don't do that. joesoloski.com. Thank you, Joe, for sponsoring the show. All right, so let's get on. We only have a few minutes left here. You had Judge Knopp on here very recently, which is amazing, honestly. He's all over the news quite frequently all the time. Very informed, very intelligent. He's a freaking judge, and you get to have him on frequently. So congrats to you.
Every Thursday, man. He's great.
Yeah, every Thursday. Yeah, you said that. That's the one thing I heard on the show last week was that was his dedicated show day. So congrats on landing that kind of a major of a big fish. I'm fortunate enough to get people like Carol Roth, Matt Kibbe, Spike Cohen on multiple times, basically whenever I want, pretty much. But not somebody that's going to come on my show like every week like Judge Knapp for you. So congratulations. That's amazing. We're actually along I wanted to mention this earlier. We're kind of on the same trajectory here, I would say. Maybe you're a little bit further along. I've been podcasting for about a year now, and I get to have all these major names on it quite frequently. And I think you had been doing it for like 2 years, and now you're at about 70 to 100,000 downloads a month or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I do. This month I did 125,000. So that's
insane.
That's the record. But I'm just getting bigger and bigger guests, and I think I'm getting a more and more loyal audience that they really. I have people like if I don't put out 2 or 3 episodes a week, people start messaging me going like, "Hey, dude, what's up?"
Hey, what's up?
like they're waiting for another one, and that tells you that you're doing something special. Because if people are like actually waiting for it, that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's amazing. So congratulations, dude. I couldn't be more happy for you. Very proud of you. Yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, I feel it in my soul because like I'm a very brand new newbie at this. And I tell my audience all the time, which is this show, a little bit, obviously a lot less than yours, but it is one of the fastest and largest growing shows in the libertarian movement. I believe this to be an elected position. People can vote with their time. And they choose to spend their time here with me, having amazing guests on like you, who has amazing guests on like Judge Knapp, to talk about the Trump raid with the FBI. And at the time of that episode, Judge Knapp was like, I don't, correct me on everywhere that I'm wrong here. But basically, he was saying that I don't think it's a fishing expedition. I think they've got XYZ marked off and their boxes are checked and yada, yada, yada. Now, I'm going to have to disagree with Judge Knapp because
that's fine.
Every freaking day, the story and narrative has changed.
Right.
Now, everybody knows, or most everybody that follows me knows that I am a never Trumper. I don't have TDS, right? Like I love Trump in the entertainment value. I don't have anything against the guy. I just don't want him as the president, right? Never voted for him, never will. Okay.
That's fair. I never voted for him, but I still preferred him over Biden, to be honest.
Well, I don't know any sane person that wouldn't at this point in juncture, time, right? Like that would be that's a ridiculous thing to say. Like, no, man, I'd much rather. Like, wow.
Oh, there's still some people out there that prefer Biden. Believe it or not.
Yeah, they're pretty retarded, but yeah, they do exist, right? Like, yes, there's medicine for that, y'all.
Hi, Pendulette. Yeah, we're talking to you, bud.
Pendulette. Oh man, what a fall from grace that guy is.
Oh my god.
But the narrative keeps changing every day as to why they raided Trump's house. Okay. First, it was, certain documents. Then it was classified documents. Then it was maybe documents that were sold to some. The narrative changed every day. Nobody wanted to take responsibility for the Trump raid until I think it was like 4 days afterwards. And you might think to yourself, hey, Noel, Cajun Libertarian, that's not a real big deal. Yes, it is for an unprecedented raid on a former president's house. Yes, it is. Explanations are needed immediately because everything in the atmosphere of this country right now is very hot, smoking, and fast. So explanations are needed, and they're needed immediately. And they did not give them. Like 3 or 4 days after the raid happened, here comes the DOJ, right? And he said, okay, I'm the one that made personal the call. Okay, well, why didn't you say that at the beginning? Yeah, Merrick Garland, sorry. Why didn't you say it at the very beginning? And then after that, they steal Trump's passports. Then they say they didn't steal Trump's passports. Trump says, here's the evidence. And then they say, "Oh, my bad, we did steal your passports. We'll give them back to
the
you."
Passports, yeah. No, you're right. I mean, the story has evolved a lot. I don't think that means that Judge Knapp is necessarily incorrect. That at the at its core, that they have evidence that he took the highest level clearance documents. I'm of the vantage point that it doesn't matter because I don't think that. He was the fucking former president. He had the right to declassify and classify anything he wanted. But this is where it gets weird. There's a potential that he declassified those documents on his way out, and Biden could have reclassified them to then, make him in violation of espionage law.
Unbelievable.
That would make it very, very dark, because then you have once again the DNC functioning as a mechanism to undercut and potentially imprison, Donald Trump, which they have tried you could say you have TDS, but I hope you're at least on board with me.
No, I don't have TDS.
No, I know, but you're never Trumper. Sorry. But I hope you're on board with me that the deep state apparatus has been functioning to undermine his presidency and in
100%.
fact prevent him from becoming president, and then trying to impeach him multiple times on bullshit, not just bullshit, but projected bullshit, things that in fact the Biden administration and the DNC was guilty of themselves all along. So I have no idea. I like, people get mad at me when I even have an opinion on this as to like what's going on. My personal belief is that you do not raid a former president's home unless you have something. I don't believe that you would do that. Now, could they have? Sure, it's possible. But I like, whether they intend to plant something or they had something that they knew, dead to rights, they had him on. I think that's the more likely answer. It's just more likely, because I don't think you do it on a hope and a prayer. That's such a precedent setting thing. Like, imagine the GOP gets back in charge by some miracle, and then DeSantis or whoever it is decides, okay, well, you guys have already made this an acceptable thing to do, so we're going to raid Hunter Biden's house, Joe Biden's house. We're going to do that. Like, hey, fair is fair, brother. Like, you guys fucking changed the entire paradigm. You decided that this is what we're able to do. Well, he might. I don't know.
DeSantis would do it. I think he would do it.
Maybe. I don't know. I honestly, until he's president, I will have no opinion as to how much of a serious, real deal type dude he is. But point being, you just don't set that precedent, and unless you have him dead to rights. So, that's kind of Napolitano's viewpoint on it as well, and I share it with him that they probably do have something serious, or at least something serious in terms of they should be able to pin it to him. So we'll see, man. I think that if they prevent him from running, if they indict him, if they charge him, if they put him on trial, if they put him behind bars, like this whole country falls apart. So I hope I'm wrong. I really, really do.
I do too. I do. I hope I'm wrong as well. And so here's my real concern, right? I'm not saying I'm the guy. Let me rephrase this. I'm the guy that says, yes, I do believe Trump is guilty of crimes. I do believe Trump is worthy of prison time.
Yes.
But if you're going to go that route, then you need to imprison every single president that is still alive since Woodrow Wilson. So don't pick this guy out of the bunch to do it, because here's my greatest. It's not that we're going to set some sort of precedent that, okay, well, we throw Trump in jail, or at the very, I don't think he's going to jail. Even if they frog walk him out of Mar-a-Lago, I don't think he goes to jail. I just think they prevent him from running again. And then you just get a clear and easy 8 years of DeSantis, where then he does that stuff. That's not my concern. My concern is the people who have watched, regardless of whether they're informed or not, they have watched for 7 years this dude get vilified. These hardcore, cultist sheep worshipers of the guy, and the ones that aren't, they're going to watch him get hauled off to jail or handcuffed out of Mar-a-Lago when we know about Hillary's emails, when we know about Anthony Weiner, when we know about Bill Clinton, when we know about George W. Bush,
Hunter Biden's laptop.
When we know about Hunter Biden's laptop, man, this will go hot quick. That's my major concern. Should I
exact same?
Okay, well, that was my question.
No, that's the whole reason for my concern with this. It's like, I could give a fuck less about Trump. I don't know how much more explicit I could make it. Like, I don't care what happens to him, but he is a figurehead. He is a icon. He is, he's like almost a deity amongst the right. You don't go after that guy unless you expect the consequences. And my fear is that they know what the consequences are, and they want that. They want to have a reason to suppress the dissident right. And if that happens, our entire way of life changes dramatically, instantly. You have all of this evidence that, and this is why I bring it up to the libertarian audience so often, is, a lot of libertarians, especially the good ones, the ones that, bit their tongue during COVID and basically stand for nothing, think that they're like, I don't vote for Republicans. I have nothing to worry about. I'm not one of those radicals talking about abolishing the FBI. I have nothing to worry about. Look, dude, they're coming for all of us. Like,
absolutely.
You have fucking General Michael Hayden former director of the CIA, saying that the conservatives are the most dangerous, whatever, political movement
most dangerous extremist group that he's ever seen. Dude went through the Rwandan genocide. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but my God, is that freaking dangerous? What he's saying is absolutely dangerous. Genocide after genocide.
He was responsible for fucking arming and funding, the Taliban and ISIS and all sorts of other organizations. So yeah, I mean that's so detached from reality. But the point is that you then have Brennan, who was the other former head of the CIA, who's also an overt communist. He has already come out and said, the libertarians, like they include us in this category.
Absolutely.
Then you have all the time. Then you have the domestic violent extremist, memo that on day one of Biden's presidency, and also more recently via that Veritas leak, once again categorized anarcho-capitalists, which is fucking libertarians, man. Yep. So like they have us all in this together. Like whether you like it or not, they are coming for all of us in this way. So if they're going to take it to its logical extreme and try and prevent Trump from running, then you're probably going to see dissident right-wingers, not libertarians, but dissident right-wingers rise up, and then they have all of the the ammunition they need to just come crashing down on these people. And that is not something I want to see happen. So this is why I'm pointing it out now, because I want people to understand what's happening.
Amen. So freaking well said. I've been saying it time and over again. They are literally lumping us all into the same demographic. I don't care what you think you identify as. They are lumping anybody. And here's what I say. They're lumping anyone who's pro 1A, pro 2A, all in the same category.
Yep.
If you're pro free speech and you're pro Second Amendment, you're getting lumped into this category. Yep. And between the Alex Jones trial and the Donald Trump raid, this government wants silence or they want violence. And we can afford to give them neither. Yes. But don't be daft, don't be naive, and think that, oh, I'm not that guy. They'll never do that to me. No, shut your mouth. You're an idiot. You've got your head in the sand. Wake up, because it doesn't matter what you think you're going to say on Twitter with your 14 followers, me included, with only 7,000, right? They're coming. Okay. Yeah. If we don't put into this, they're weaponized.
And let me also add, if they were coming after the left as aggressively, I would still be sounding the alarm. I'm not really like, I'm not picking a side here in terms of like, I ride with the Republicans. I'm saying if you have a political apparatus that is weaponized and deciding and basically locking its sights in on a certain political dissident movement, that is a recipe for disaster. It doesn't matter what the political movement is. And it just happens to be really catastrophic because there's fucking 80 million Republicans or something in this country that they could potentially really try and suppress, and those people aren't going to just accept suppression forever. Like you will end up with real violence from that. So it's the only reason I bring it up is because I don't want that outcome. It's a very dangerous path to be on, and I think that it's really important that we let the politicians know we see what you're doing. We see where you're headed with all of this. And we are imploring you, pleading, don't do it. Do not go down this path. Please. It's not good for any of us, man. We don't need to live like this. We don't need to function with this, incredibly tribalistic mentality where we're at each other's throats over everything. It's like we can agree to just go our separate ways peacefully. You don't have to be so dominating over everyone that has, some little smidgen of belief and liberty. It's sick. And this is why I'm very concerned.
No, it's absolutely valid, Clint. I hard agree on everything you've said tonight. Thank you so much for coming on the show, bro. We're out of time. Please give us a white pill to end the show and tell us where we can follow you and where we can have the hope and concerns and anything that you have to pitch to make sure that you grow your brand faster, because you are on a skyrocket level upwards. I hope to follow in your wake. Thank you so much for coming on the show, but let everybody know where we can find you.
Sure. At Liberty Lock Pod on Twitter. I'm at like 49.2. So I need 800 more followers to get to 50,000. Do it before they nuke me. Come on. I got to get to that milestone before they nuke me. That'd be really a beautiful thing. If you want to follow the show, obviously Liberty Lockdown on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all over the place. Just search Liberty Lockdown. You'll find me. This Thursday, I have, tomorrow night, I'm having Fiorella Isabel and like a bunch of base lefties on to talk about the assassination that just happened. I'm forgetting her name. Shit. The assassination just happened in Russia last night. I can't remember.
Wow, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So one of them, Fiorella, actually is now in Russia. So she's reporting for RT. So she's going to be on my show tomorrow night to give us the latest on that. And it'll be a panel discussion. So I'm very, I think that's probably the most important topic today is preventing World War III. And then from there, preventing the Great Reset. So on Thursday, I'll have Dave Smith on, which will obviously be great as always. And then I have a bunch more, huge guests lined up for the remainder of the month. But first week, it's actually September 4th, 9 a.m. Eastern. I will have Styx Hexenhammer debating Dave Smith on Liberty Lockdown, on Donald Trump's legacy. That will be an absolute barn burner. So I hope people don't miss that. As far as white pills go, there's a ton of reason for hope. It seems really hopeless because it's like I feel like a lot of people are just waking up to how grave this is. But to me, if you can get more and more people to understand what we're talking about, there's no reason to believe that we can't win this. There's really no reason to. Like, I still believe that like there's cycles of tyranny and freedom that happen historically, and it just boils down to how much suffering are we going to have to go through to get back to that better time. And unfortunately, we are headed into the teeth of the bad times. We've already been in the teeth for a while, but we're starting to get chewed up. So I think that we're going to get to the other side of this. And if people like us, people that share our beliefs, are able to kind of mold public debate and try and get our ideas to be implemented within the reform of whatever happens after the collapse, or hopefully not a collapse, hopefully just a reform. I think that we have more and more reason to believe that we could have a future that's far brighter than we could have ever imagined. And given the technological innovation that's paired with that, I think that we could have, just a better life than we could even imagine, like ever imagine. So despite the fact that I talk about the darkest shit all the time,
me too.
I am ultimately a deep optimist. I really believe that we're going to get through the other side of this thing and we are going to create something beautiful. So get involved and keep speaking the truth, Ben.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm with you. I talk about the dark stuff all the time. But Matt has addressed it. Matt Kibbe has addressed it several times. Like, you got to be more of an optimist, man. I was like, dude, I'm trying, but what the hell? Look around us.
It's going to be hard. I'm not trying to say it's not going to be hard, but I think we will get through, and I think it will be a more beautiful future than we could ever imagine.
Yeah, and look, for the people like you and the people like Matt and myself and all of us that are legitimately putting in the effort and working time and hard, blood and sweat and time away from our families. Look, it matters. It makes a difference. You never know. I use it, and we'll end on this. I use this analogy all the time. Billy Graham is on record as statistically the greatest Christian evangelist of all time. He was 9 years old. He went to a tent revival of like less than 400 people. I mean, it was a little bitty old dirt tent revival in Oklahoma. He got saved. He changed the world. Yeah. One person. You never know who you're going to reach. So, Clint,
exactly.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show, dude. We didn't get to everything I wanted to get to, but you know how it goes with these conversations.
Yeah, it's all good, dude.
Hopefully I can have you back on again real soon and we can hash it up again. Until then, thank you very much. And we'll be following you and paying attention to everything you have to say.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Continued success.
Thank you. You too. Talk to you soon. Absolutely freaking amazing conversation with Clint, as I expected it would go, right? I mean, just fire, shooting off the hip, talking about all the things that matter. And again, we didn't even get to get everything that we had. I still got notes here left that we weren't able to get to. Doesn't matter. Absolutely fire conversation. Thank you again, Clint, for coming on the show and having a great conversation. Thank you, all of you, to those in the audience watching, paying attention. There's an unparalleled amount of freaking comments in the comment section. We're 1 hour and 5 minutes over. So or not over, but we're over by a few minutes. So I'm really trying to be more professional and take this thing seriously and not just BS, because I think these things are very important. There's a lot of people that listen and watch this show now. So I want to keep it to the time limit so that we keep those listeners and we keep those loyal people, that loyal audience. And you guys are amazing. Like I said, elected position, you vote with your time. You're here with me, spending the time, the important time of learning from people like Clint Russel and Liberty Lockdown. So make sure you follow him on Twitter. Listen to his shows. And I'm telling you, go to Matt Kibbe too, by the way, Kibbe for Liberty, and listen to Clint's conversation with Matt. It's phenomenal. It's a great conversation. It's something that you can learn big time. Go back and listen to my episodes with Carol Roth, extraordinary economist, on the Glenn Beck radio program every week. She's been on my show a couple of times. Extremely brilliant, amazing economist. Okay. Go check my Dave Smith episode. Great episode. Every time Spike comes on the show, every time Larry Sharp comes on the show, big names, big people, great ideas, white pills, things that need to be done. Go check them out. Follow me. Subscribe. If you haven't already, kindly smash that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so every time I go live with people like Spike and Larry Sharp, Dave Smith, Clint Russell, Hannah Cox, Libertarian Redhead. I mean, the list is just forever long. You don't miss one of those shows. You catch all of them. You get all the information. Carol Roth, all of them. I love each and every one of you very, very, very much. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for traveling this journey with me in real time as we learn from these people that are incredibly informed, so we can get back, because we do have a chance to get us back. We are not lost, but it needs each and every one of us, each and every one of you, every boot on the ground, every voice in the movement, and we'll win. We will win. I love you very much. I will see you same Cajun time, same Cajun channel. Thinking about implementing a new show, a new episode. So stay tuned. I'll put it out on Twitter, crop it, tweet it, all that fun stuff. Throw it on Facebook so you'll know where to go. But if not, if I don't do that show this week, then I'll see you Sunday night. Same Cajun time, same Cajun channel, and I'm out. I love each and every one of y'all.